Welcome to Get Personal with Finance. Today I'll be answering the question, or at least help you answer this question for yourself, because it's simple but it's really important. Should I invest my money or pay off debt? I want to provide you with two main points for you to consider, so you can answer this question for yourself. Is first, you have to understand that assets minus liability equals your net worth. Got it? And then the second one is that you need to rethink the definition of debt. So you're comparing two things, investing and debt. So you need to make sure that you have a good understanding of what is it that you're investing in. And debt is a topic that I think people don't really understand, so I want to challenge you to rethink that definition. So let's take the first point, assets minus liability equals net worth. So now, if we take that formula, and your net worth is what you're worth right now, if I pay down my debt, does that mean my net worth goes up? Yes. If I keep my debt the same and I grow my assets, right? I invest more, and the value of my home goes up, the value of my business goes up, the value of my stock goes up. Does that mean my net worth goes up? Yes, right? So to me, they're really two sides of the same coin, right? They're the same thing. So if you reduce debt, obviously your net worth goes up. If you keep your debt the same and you increase your assets, your net worth goes up. Got it? So it's one of those things where it depends on what your financial plan is, your strategy, what you want to do. That's really important. So again, it goes back to your priorities, right? Because when you buy a home, you have to pretty much take on debt, right? Unless you're really well off, you can just pay cash. But I think money is cheap, so it sucks for those who are saving money for just the sake of saving, not saving towards something. And we covered that in another video. But it's great for debt. So because money is cheap to borrow, so you might want to borrow that towards accumulating an asset, right? So just understand that definition, but that should make you feel better when you take on debt, which is kind of a scary word that has a negative connotation. Now that if you can frame it in that perspective of, I'm getting more debt, but my assets are also appreciating, so my net worth is really not impacted, right? And especially debt is on something that is an asset, not on something that is a liability. So to expand upon assets and liabilities, so what is an asset? Simply put, and to define it in a cash flow manner, it's easier for you to do your own accounting of your finances. An asset is something that pays you, and a liability is something that you pay it, like debt, right? So asset, for example, is your car an asset? Well, no, right? Does your car pay you every month? It doesn't. Matter of fact, you pay it to service it, etc. So that's a liability more than an asset. Well, is your home an asset? Well, no, it's on the liability column, right? Because your home appreciates in value. We're not talking about that, but it's still something that you own that you have to service, that you got to pay. So that's still a liability. But if you have a rental property that net of all expenses, etc., it pays you, let's say it nets you $300 a month, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, whatever, that's now an asset. Does that make sense? So, or you have something that is appreciated in value, equity, and then there's debt. But that equity, I guess you can count that as an asset column. But to put it simpler for your own finances, you want to accumulate more assets, things that can pay you income, or it appreciates over time versus it depreciates over time, like a car, right? That depreciates over time. So really important to keep those two things into perspective. So the topic of debt doesn't scare you. So going back to debt, so liability wise, just know that these are the things that will eat away at your net worth. So you want to keep it at a minimal, and you want to make sure that if you have liabilities, it's towards something that you absolutely need, like a car to get to places, but not on things that you don't need, like excessive furniture, or you finance everything and so you're making payments. That's not a good way to build wealth. That's a good way for you to build wealth for the company that you're buying those things from, but it's eating away at your cash flow. It's just not wise to build up your liability column. So at the end of the day, the more assets you have, the better your net worth and your finance is going to be, right? So keep your liability to a minimum. So anyway, so just understand that formula. So again, if you're paying down debt, and you keep your asset the same, your net worth would then increase, right? Because let's say you begin with this and you pay down your liability or your debt, obviously your net worth then goes up. Or you keep your debt the same and you decide instead of paying down debt, you're investing, and that grows, then your net worth grows, right? So there you go. So just understand that formula, really, really important, very basic. I know everybody just brush over that. It's so basic, it's so elementary, but people don't understand it simply and thoroughly and apply that to their own financial decisions. So that's point one. Point two is, and this is really important, is how do you define debt? What is your definition of that dirty word debt? And believe it or not, that's gonna be your reality, right? And that's gonna really build upon your understanding of finance. And to me, I challenge you to rethink the definition of debt as your inability to pay what you owe. So for example, I have $1 million in a liquid investment portfolio in blue chip stocks, or $1 million in savings. And I owe on my house $200,000. And so I have $200,000 mortgage debt, right? Now, based on the definition I just gave you, so you can rethink the idea of debt when it comes to your finances, you have $1 million and you have a $200,000 mortgage. Do you have a debt problem? You don't, right? So the debt is your inability to pay what you owe. You don't have a debt problem. So it's fine to have debt because you have this amount of money here that you can liquidate and pay this off and you're good to go. So when it comes to the question of should I invest and should I pay off debt, well, it kind of depends. If you have bad debt, like things that doesn't grow, like student loans, for example, especially if you make over a certain amount of income, you can't deduct the interest anyways. So you should pay that off, right? Because it's something that costs you every month, right? Every year. So you need to pay that off because that's a liability that works against you. So every month it's growing at a rate of 6, 7, 10%, or worse, credit card. If you look at a credit card rate, the interest it's earning at, as high as 25% or maybe more. And then your savings is only paying you a whopping, less than 0.1%, then obviously you need to pay off your debt, right? So something as simple as that. So, but don't be intimidated if you have a lot of savings and you have debt, especially you can service that debt by making good payments. You can continue to invest, right? So does that help? But if you have, for example, if you're trying to save and think about investing, but you have credit card debt that's eating you alive at 10, 20% rate of return for the company, that works against you. Unless you can invest your money in something that earns you 10, 20% more than what the credit card is, then obviously invest, right? But if it isn't, pay off the credit card. From my perspective and what I've done with my finances is that I pay off the debt. Because remember, even if you make a 10% return on your investment, don't forget, if you cash out that rate of return, you have to pay taxes too. So technically you would have to make 15%, to really equal 10% and use that 10% to pay off something that's like 10% here, right? You're better off just paying down your debt. And especially debt that you cannot deduct, right? If you have a business, you can deduct interest on debt. But if you don't have a business, or like your student loans, for example, you cannot deduct interest, then yeah, you have bad debt. You should pay off that debt first and foremost, because where else can you get a return that's higher than what that debt is costing you, right? And another way to look at it is to better control your finances just for your psychology, so you feel more control of your money, is get rid of the debt. There's nothing like building your confidence and building your ability to take ownership of your finances where you don't have to answer to Visa, MasterCard, or whatever furniture place where you bought it, or the student loan company. It does a lot to your one's psyche. At least for me, I can tell you when I pay off some debt, it feels good, and that feeling you can really build upon, and you feel like you have control over your finances now. So that to me is the greatest investment. The first investment is to pay off your loans, because so it doesn't eat away at your savings or your cash flow on a monthly basis, right? So that's what I tell my younger clients, is to, by all means, before you talk about investing, whatever, pay off your student loans, pay off your car loan. If the loan is really low and it's not really important. You don't need to, where you can build up your savings to buy a home or to invest in a practice or a business or something if they're medical students or so. That's better off. So again, to review, 2 points that you want to really consider is that assets minus liability equals net worth, and understand that the definition of debt should be your inability to pay what you owe. So you don't have a debt problem if you have assets that can easily pay off your debt, right? And especially right now, interest rates are low, you can keep debt where it is. But if you have things that are just ridiculous, like credit card debt that's running your life, that tells me that you're just really bad at managing, and you don't have control over your emotions, and you're buying things you probably don't need. And so now you regret it. So don't put yourself in that position, but for this sake, just be smart that pay off debt first, because it's especially debt that you cannot deduct, right? You cannot write off for your taxes, and debt that is higher than what you can possibly make when you invest, right? So that's an easy decision there, and take control back your money, right? So there you go. So those are 2 great points for you to consider. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and help us build out the channel, and see you in the next video.